Hey everyone, and welcome to my first deck tech talk for Opus 14. And what better way to start it off than with a deck I played at the Lunar Conflict R4. This is a beautiful finalist mat, stitched edges that the finalists got. This one actually isn't mine, it belongs to my buddy Steven, but I picked it up for him and I haven't had a chance to get it to him yet, so I thought, hey, might as well show it off for the deck tech, because the deck I'll be showing you today is the deck that I played in the battle arena with the status reels. And I went 6-0 with it, and I played 2 battle arenas. The second one I went 3-1, but the first one I went 6-0, won the day, and that involves our brand new Golbez. It's really funny. I kind of just threw this together a few days before, like a day or two before I actually went there, because I wanted an aggro deck. I wanted a deck that was legit aggro, try to win the game in as few turns as possible. Honestly, because that's just not the type of player I am. I don't like aggro. But I just wanted to try something new. The Golbez seemed interesting, so I'll read them off for those of you who don't know. He's, of course, 5 cost 9k. At the beginning of the attack phase, during each of your turns, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a forward of cost 3 or less, you may play it onto the field. Then, he has an action ability where you can dull Golbez, and you put 4 characters into the break zone, choose a forward, and you gain control of it. We'll talk about that a little more in detail later. But for the most part, you just want to put out Golbez, turn 1, and then just start flipping off free forward. So this entire deck is based around that. There are a few things. There's a lot of different ways you could take a deck like this. This version is mainly water-ice. So I thought about actually spicing up some of the tech, but I wanted to just give you the honest version of what I played this weekend that won it for me. So we'll just stick with that. So along with Golbez, you have 3 copies of Marrowweb. Searches out a water forward, but this is your target. If you do not see Marrowweb or Golbez in your hand, turn 1, you absolutely mulligan. You are trying to get one of these 2 right away. If you go second, you can easily play both in 1 turn. I go first, usually, and even if I just get the Marrowweb, I'm fine playing the Marrowweb, searching out the Golbez, and then just waiting a turn to put it out. Only time you have a risk of that is if they're playing something with hand discard, like a Zidane or a Kate Sis, something that's going to rip the Golbez out of your hand. But minus that, it's absolutely what you want to do. There are only 8 backups in this entire deck. There's no summons, no monsters, and 42 forwards. So, showing the other two of the backups we have is Lose Off. And Lose Off, when he has back attacks, you can play him on your opponent's turn. When he enters the field, you choose a forward you control and you bounce it back to your hand. And then it creates a Famford effect for your opponent. They have to select a forward they control, put it in the break zone. He's a great way to protect Golbez, or another way to just shrink any potentially crummy blocker they have on the field. And in particular, he's really good against getting around things like Braska's Final Aeon or Neo X Death or something that has a revenge trigger when you choose it, because that will come up in this deck. So, really nice, spicy guy. Again, if they're going to take out your Golbez, you back attack and Lose Off, pop it back to your hand. And what's great about Lose Off in this deck is that you always are going to have forwards out. So, 2 copies of Emmett Selk. This card, honestly, has always been kind of for me, but in this deck, I absolutely love him because he will go fetch our last backup. So, Snow is our 3rd backup. So, he's the total 8 amount of backups total, 3 unique ones. And Emmett Selk, you can flip him off the Golbez trigger, pay him, throw 2 cards out of your hand, now you get your Snow backup. And that's what really feeds into this aggro is not only are you going to just be generating bodies super quickly, your opponent can't even put blockers in the way. You know, Snow's just going to knock them out of the way. So again, unless they have like a Braska's or something that can't be dulled, like a Gudon, I actually ran into that once. This is going to give them a lot of trouble. One thing, if they are playing a Braska's, maybe you don't actually put the Snow out because you don't want to automatically trigger it every time you're attacking. But in most situations, you're going to be happy to have Snow. And finally, this is the only other card that cannot be hit off a Golbez, and that's 2 copies of Layla. So the only cards in the entire deck that Golbez can't play to the field for free are copies of himself, the 2 Layla, the Snow, the Marrowweb, and Lose Off. Everything else I'm going to show you from this point on can be played off of the Golbez trigger, and obviously Emmett Selk includes that. So with Layla, do the Viking, 3 of the Cascade Vikings. If you hit one of those, maybe you'll get lucky enough to hit one of the typical Layla Viking targets. This guy's going to draw you a card on entry, draw you any leave, which is fantastic. And again, with Snow out, it doesn't matter that him and his little buddy here are such small forwards because, you know, Snow's just going to get him around anyway, and they do a point of damage. That's what matters. So there's your little Viking Cascade. I've thought about taking this package out for something more you know, if you wanted like a stronger forward. But again, they fit the idea because they can flood the field. Even if you only hit one off of him, if you can do Leyland to Viking or just Viking, now you have 2 people, Snow, and then Golbez is going to keep getting you more. So, and I really like the way it played. Now for just a bunch of random stuff, here's a Steiner. Maybe he'll clear a forward out of the way. Maybe he'll give your team a power buff, which could be relevant, again, if they have like a mat, something that can't be dulled. 1 Ultimisia. Almost always you're going to use the discard effect. I think one time I actually did bounce something to my hand, and it was either this Viking, so I could get another card draw, or actually bounce the lose off, so I could then play it again. But for the most part, you just use a draw. In particular, too, I'll say, kind of with all these cards going forward, you'll see, I really wanted to stick with the water-ice theme. So everything I'm playing that is multi-element has either water or ice, or both, because I wanted you know, there's very few things in here that you can't hard cast if you absolutely need to. Which again, you could build a Golbez deck, you could put 3-cost Earth forwards in here, you know, you could throw Graph in here. But you just have to remember you're going to have a really hard time hard casting that card. Whereas here, because I stuck with the elements, because there are some turns that get awkward, this way you can still hard cast if you absolutely need to. So, more 2 costs. Charlotte, fantastic, helps protect our Golbez. 2 copies of Titania. You can't hard cast this because you have no monsters or summons, but a great card to flip off a Golbez. Oh, thank you. Dull Freeze 2 of your characters, and I got this nice 8K on board too. 2 copies of Vayne. I don't think you can actually get the fire effect off, so he'll never be a 10K. But again, you have Snow, so his body size doesn't really matter, and he's still 8 on his own. And then you can get the ice effect, though, to make them discard when he attacks, so that's really nice. 2 copies of Yazuki. This one is quite nice. Again, the fire effect, not really relevant, because I think these are the only fire splits in here, but her water effect is great, because all your water stuff is going to take less damage, which, again, the key is to keep Golbez alive. Then we've got 2 copies of the Proto-Falsi Atom. The discard, you know, he's interesting. Sometimes the discard comes up because they have to play out so much because they're trying to counter your hand that they'll get a small hand size. And so then he becomes a 2K first strike, which is great. But in particular, he gets the manipulator counters. So it's just a form of protection, which is really nice. You know, it's just, if they want to deal with this guy, they're going to have to burn through 2 of his counters. One of the MVPs of the deck absolutely is Rosa. Once she gets out there, I had so many people completely forget about her protection effect, and they would swing their 7K into my 7K, you know, and I would just block, and they were like, well, don't they trade? I was like, nope, Rosa's on the field, so they take less damage. Helps protect. And then again, once you get that big board, because Rosa will always reactivate, you can legit, you know, party Rosa in the Vikings, Snow's going to dull 2, Rosa reactivate, and you don't lose an attacker because now she can go in again as well. Hope, you can't hard cast this again unless you get the other copy of Hope, but Hope is fantastic with the Snow because it means all your Snow triggers now not only dull them, they dull them and freeze them. I had one game where Hope was one of my first hits off of Golbez, and then I had Emmett Selk in the Snow, so it was legit every person who attacks is now dull freezing on attack. Really fun, great body. Now, the next 2 are probably 2 of the best cards you can flip off the top. One of them in a game, I flipped him off as my very first turn 1 0 miss, and it's game over, especially if you're going turn second, which I did in one of the games. I went second, put out the Golbez right away, flipped over 0 miss, froze the backup they had, and now they basically can't even put blockers out. Now you don't even need Snow because 0 miss is just going to dull their field. I mean, that was just brutal. And then the other one is White Tiger Lassie Nimbus. Again, there's no way to cast this off of backups because there won't be Earth CP, but I had another game too where he was my very first target. Turn 1, hit the Golbez, flip off the Tiger, and I was going second, so again I froze their forward. Now they've got, this guy is just going to dull freeze a character every time. Yeah, I froze their backup. Brutal card. And then one of the other MVPs of the deck, and this one is very important, is Dusk. Great Warrior of Light. I'm playing through, what is this, Final Fantasy Legends right now. Really fun game. But when he enters the field, as long as you pay a water CP, you can play any 3 cost or less for free. So this is your way to cheat in the Hope, the White Tiger, the 0 miss. You know, this is your way to cheat in some of these cards that maybe you would have trouble hard casting, but now Dusk can just bring them in for free. And then his Blessing will also protect any of these 3 costs as well. So really fun card. Great, again, if you've got Lose Off or Marrow Web down because you just pitch 2 for the Dusk. Then you just tap the Marrow Web with the Lose Off. Or even if you have just one of these down, tap them, play the Dusk on curve, then just pitch a water card from hand. There's been a few times I've been lucky enough if I get both down, I can dull one, pitch, play him on curve, and then pay the other water. And then I think I brought in like White Tiger or Zero Miss for free, so just really, really fun. And a dark card, Golbez. Great body. And Golbez is awesome because on the return, if they're trying to swing back at you, he's basically going to take out any forward they have because he can cause them to lose power as well as block them. And then, his other effects are, the monster ones are relevant, but you can make him discard randomly. So I like him a lot. And last, but certainly not least, a card that I didn't care about at all when I saw it released. But in this deck, I like him a lot. And that's Gilgamesh, Final Fantasy Brave Exvius. So you will almost always have his first effect online, which is if you have 3 or more elements in your break zone. So he'll have 1,000 power, haste, and first strike. And honestly, that's plenty. Flipping him off the top of Golbez, and then he can immediately go in, and you've got the snow usually, so like you're dulling. It's just a hasted forward. Something that can attack immediately off of Golbez, which I think the only other one who could do that is Zero Miss if you're on damage 3, so it's really nice. And then pretty frequently I actually have gotten to the 5 elements or more when some of these multi-elements get in there. And so now you've got this hasted person who can dull freeze a character. And so I remember once I flipped him off of Golbez, had the snow. You attack with him. I took out 2 blockers, dull that blocker, dull freeze that other one. Really fun. It is technically possible to get to all 7. You'll have to have Golbez in the break zone, but you can do, dark, wind, earth, lightning, water, ice, fire. So it is technically possible. I've never gotten to that point. And again, I wouldn't really count on that because you want the game to end way before then anyway. But just the fact that he has haste is good enough on his own. So here's the deck. It was really fun. So nice thing about this deck too, this is very linear. You have one plan and one plan only. And that's, you see Golbez or Marrow Web turn 1. You get Golbez out, and then you let him start generating pressure. This deck is very linear in that way, and if they have a way to deal with Golbez, this deck will fall apart. I've had turns where people, they had Alexander in hand, or they had something that just broke him right away, and then the deck just doesn't do anything. So you 100% need to know that going into it. But again, you don't want this to go on. This isn't supposed to be a drag-out, knockout deck. You want to end this as quickly as you can while you're just overwhelming them with forwards. Now, the final hidden part we'll talk about, and man, oh man, did I have some fun with this, is Golbez's action ability, where you dull Golbez, you put 4 characters into the break zone, and then you take permanent control of a forward an opponent has. And that includes your backups. So there have been turns where to go for lethal. I remember at the tournament, one guy, he had the Opus 11 Sabin. He went to combat, he dealt himself a point of damage to give Sabin's effect. And then I said, okay, well, before you attack, I dulled the Golbez, and I sacked off Marrow Web and Lose Off and 2 of the Vikings to take control of his Sabin. So now he doesn't even have a forward, and I get to use it on my turn. And then I draw cards from the Vikings too, which was really nice. So I used it against a Gudon. Someone put Gudon out because oh, you're going to dull me with the snow? I'll just do this. And I was like, all right, well, when he went to combat, dulled Golbez, sacked off a bunch of my guys, just stole the Gudon. Now I'm attacking twice, plus I'm still going to get the Golbez value. So fun. Probably one of my favorite ones was someone played the new Leviathan Prime. Bring the Leviathan down. They say, okay, bounce, this and this. And I was like, all right, well, before that resolves, Golbez a trigger, mind control, completely took control of Leviathan. Now, my Leviathan sees my own guys bounce, which means I get to take out your forwards for 9,000. It's just so neat. And again, you're going to have so many bodies and characters that you actually use it way more than I originally anticipated. I thought it would just be mainly Golbez flipping guys out, and that would be the case. Or even, you can use it on Golbez himself as a self-sacrifice. I had someone drop what was it? It was some kind of big board wipe. I think it was like a Philia. And it was going to kill everything on the board. And I was like, well, since it's going out, might as well. I just dulled Golbez, had him sack himself and the 3 other forwards that were going to die anyway, and just took control of the Philia. So, yeah, really nice. A lot of fun stuff you can do. Fun deck. Very aggressive. Try it out. I think you'll have a good time with it. Feel free to experiment with other versions of it, but this version has felt incredibly consistent, which I love. So, hope you enjoy it, and we will see you later. Bye!